Is data killing innovation? And if so, what can be done about it? The short answer is yes. Hey everybody, Tim Sweeney coming to you from a bright, sunny Austin, Texas day. Let's start by breaking down why data is killing innovation, and then we can discuss what can be done about it. For purposes of this conversation, we're largely referring to data as key performance metrics generated through interactions between the market and an organization's products, services, and media, though it can certainly extend well beyond those boundaries. For the most part, data is usually real-time, up-to-date, and easily accessible. This is leading to three key issues. One is that organizations become over-reliant on this data to de-risk all sorts of decisions. In terms of innovation, this would cover decisions about what ideas to move forward with, what changes to make to offerings, etc. Two, this is driving a culture of artificial time scarcity. Getting anything done, even if broken, gets prioritized over actually solving the issues in data trend lines. Responses to KPI change can feel a bit panicked, and as we know, nothing good comes from panic. Three, it's resulted in structural shifts that center on data production centers. For example, it's now common to organize around products and away from functional silos. The positive here is that product structures are typically cross-functional and they're more purpose-driven, but the structure itself constrains the innovation sandbox. Product-centric structures only exist to support the product that they're built around. In a static market, they can be very effective at incrementally addressing issues in data trend lines, things like adoption, churn, engagement, market share, sentiment, etc. However, as we know, the market isn't static. Competitors, particularly newcomers, are playing a much different game. They can make existing or incumbent products completely irrelevant. If competition has mild success, product-centric structures can struggle to address those data trend lines. They're simply not built to envision new products or put themselves out of business. So how does this affect organizational beliefs and behaviors in regard to innovation? First, they would love innovation activities like ideation and conceptualization to get going immediately. Hey, we have the data, let's start generating some ideas. The problem is that KPIs provide a lot of what's happening information, but not much why it's happening insight. What's happening information is not a useful input for innovation or problem solving. All it does is tell you that you have a problem. Hey, your cholesterol is high. We don't know why. There's no pharmaceutical solution. You need to know why in order to do something about it. Getting the why insight typically requires going off platform to do research and sense making. It's a time and resource cost. It needs to be justified. It can also be perceived as a risk, as there may be some that don't have a clear understanding of how these efforts will ultimately impact KPIs. Additionally, organizations would love all prototyping and experimentation to be done on platform with live product so they can see data changes in real time. Why wouldn't they? It provides absolute certainty of solution. The problem is that the capacity to run on-platform prototypes is constrained by resources. In absence of why insight, it's unrealistic, if not unwise, to run the number of on-platform experiments required to find a solution that actually works. Rather than boil the ocean for an answer, some level of off-platform divergent and convergent solution exploration needs to happen to significantly increase the odds of hitting the proverbial dartboard. This again is perceived to be costly and time-consuming. In summary, organizations are struggling to justify off-platform innovation efforts in data-rich, insight-poor, time-scarce cultures. So what can we do about this? I'd recommend starting by simply understanding that there are two mental models for these dynamics. A, an operational dynamic of efficiency when responding to performance-based stimuli, and B, a growth imperative, which is largely a customer/user way of considering where your product is misaligned with the market. This will allow you to be more responsive to conversations centered around approaches and investments. In terms of direct interventions, there are several things that can be done. Some require more organizational control than others. Let's start with the ones that require more control and then move to less. Ideally, organizations should fully integrate and operationalize insight development so that it sits parallel to data development as a foundation. Largely, this means decoupling it from project work and funding it consistently. For instance, I could imagine a rolling qualitative effort that feeds insight into product dashboards and aligns to KPIs and other platform data. This would remove the perceived cost of time, but not necessarily cost of resources. Slightly down the control scale, you could appropriately incentivize people like product managers by introducing a performance metric for on-platform experiment success rate. This would drive behaviors that lead to on-platform experiments with greater potential for impact. Further down the control scale, there are a number of ways to influence an organization. One is to reframe the cost-risk equation associated with insight development and evangelize it. It should start by flipping the equation on its head and exposing the costs and risks associated with innovating directly from platform data. Remember, at this moment, organizations may not perceive any risk or cost going down that pathway. More specifically, I could imagine leveraging an odds-based approach to do this, to increase the odds of impacting KPIs without insight development. An ocean-boiling approach to experimentation is necessary. Many of us have probably observed this as organizational thrash or endless pivots. This type of framing introduces fear of failure to impact KPIs in a timely manner. Another influential approach is to develop and evangelize a coherent narrative that connects off-platform investments to on-platform impact. I could imagine a narrative describing how insight development efforts feed into and drive ideation, prototyping, and ultimately KPI change. The idea here is to address any lack of knowledge or awareness that might exist within the organization. One last powerful influence approach is to find other leaders who get it and organize a formal community of practice inside your organization. These groups can generate a lot of political weight and influence outside formal structures. The key is inside your organization. This is not an association or other external entity. If structural and influence efforts aren't in your scope, you can level the playing field with KPIs to some extent. Quantifying the why insights in a statistically significant manner can at least balance the attention they get relative to platform data. This assumes that you have the budget or ability to make the case for this type of investment. And if you can only take one small, quick step, bring real people into the process. Even at a statistically insignificant scale, it's impossible for leaders to ignore real customers or users who aren't abstracted through big data. Fortunately or unfortunately, these are the tasks modern innovation leaders need to take on in order to be successful. Let me know what other questions this sparks for you.